has been wrongly twisted into the false teaching and sex magic. This phrase, expressed by a painted symbol, symbolizes complete unity between the outer and the inner, the objective and the subjective, between spirit and matter, and between the physical and the essential. The two are one. Not more remains to grasp. The work is manifest. The work is seen complete. The whole is visioned. The magic work is wrought. Again the two are one. The plan is served. No word need then be said. These phrases are an attempt to express some of the realizations of the true initiate when he stands at the third initiation before the angel and sees that angel also pass away, so that naught is left but conscious knowledge and realization. Although this statement may signify but little to us at present, it will, nevertheless, serve to demonstrate the futility of dealing with the secrets of the mysteries and with initiation through the medium of words. When this is better realized, the true work of the Masonic dramas will begin to measure up to the need. This section expresses some of the basic emerging truths which will carry meaning to the senior disciples, and the initiates of the world, who are battling, at this time, in the service of the plan. They are present in the world at this time, and their work is bearing fruit, but they need at times the incentive of the future achievable glory to aid them to carry on. This treatise is, therefore, somewhat abstruse and quite symbolical. It may appear difficult to comprehend, and it may mean little to some and nothing at all to others. If the disciples of the world are truly struggling, and if they are applying practically the teaching given, as far as in them lies, they will find as time elapses, and their reason and intuition awaken, that such symbolic and abstruse statements become clearer and clearer, serving to convey the intended teaching. When this happens, the angel of the presence approaches ever closer, and lights the disciple on his way. The sense of separateness diminishes until, at last, light permeates the darkness, and the angel dominates the life. 2. The two cycles of egoic appropriation. We shall now enter upon a somewhat technical consideration of the relation of the ego, and its ray to the sheaths or vehicles through which it must express itself, and through which it must enter into contact with certain phases of divine experience. The foundation of what is here elaborated in relation to the cycles of appropriation will be found briefly touched upon in a treatise on cosmic fire, pages 787–790, and the following statements, gathered from those pages, will be elucidated in the succeeding pages. 1. As the ego or soul appropriates to itself a sheath for expression and experience, points of crisis will inevitably occur. A. The work of passing onto a particular plane for purposes of incarnation is one such point. This concerns the passing down to a lower plane, or from a lower plane onto a higher. Indications of the importance and the crucial nature of such transition can be seen in certain formulas which are used when passing from one degree in masonry to another, as in raising a lodge from a lower to a higher degree. B. Another such point of crisis occurs when the mental body is swept into activity, and the etheric body is similarly vitalized. 2. Relationship between the ego, or soul, and the dense physical body is established when a. Matter of the three lowest subplanes of the physical plane is built into the etheric body prior to physical incarnation, and the potential channels of communication and of exit are established. These are the main channel, or line of communication found between the center at the base of the spine and that in the head, via the spleen. B. A corresponding activity takes place in the process of liberation upon the path of return in which the bridge, or the antaskana, is established between the lower mental body, the causal body, and the higher mental worlds. When the work under the first category is accomplished upon the physical plane, and its technique is understood, man can then achieve escape from the physical body in full, waking continuity of consciousness. When a similar work has taken place on the higher plane and the bridge is satisfactorily built, then the initiate can escape from the limitations of form life, and enter into that state of consciousness called nirvana by the Buddhist. This high state of being has to be entered also in full continuity of consciousness. Both these major crises in the life of the soul, one leading to physical incarnation, and one producing the liberation of the soul from that condition, are, and must always be, the result of group vibration, of group impulse, group incentive and group impetus. One impetus originates in the group of souls, of which an incarnating ego is an integral part. The other is the result of the activity of the groups of atoms, which are vibrating in response to, but not in unison with, that egoic impulse. In this phrase is summed up the work and opportunity of the soul, for it works towards the regeneration of matter and not towards the consummation of its own salvation. It might be stated that the liberation of the soul, or ego, comes about when its work of salvaging matter, through utilizing it and building it into forms, has been carried forward to a desired point. It is not primarily due to the attainment of a certain spiritual stature by the man, and the demonstration of certain spiritual qualities. This desired stature, and these spiritual qualities are manifested when the vehicles have been occultly saved, and matter has thus been transformed, transmuted and symbolically raised up into heaven. When the vehicles vibrate in unison with the soul, then is liberation achieved. A. The points of crisis. Just as there are 5 points of crisis in the life of a man as he achieves the goal of initiation, which we call the 5 initiations, so there are 5 similar points of crisis in the process of taking form in the 3 worlds, with 3 of more importance, the first, the third and the fifth. When, speaking again in symbols, a soul, functioning under divine impulse, comes into incarnation and undergoes racial experience in order to develop certain manifested qualities, there are 5 points of crisis. I am here speaking in terms of humanity as a whole, as mankind expresses what we call the human state of consciousness. I am not speaking in terms of an individual soul, if such a misnomer may be permitted. These 5 points of crisis mark the transfer of soul life from one race to another. Each time such an event happens, there is racial unfoldment, and the appropriation, more or less consciously, by the race of another vehicle of expression. The following tabulation shows the appropriations marking the 5 racial crises. 1. In the Lemurian civilization, the appropriation of the physical body, with its 5 senses. 2. In the Atlantean civilization, the appropriation of the astral body. 3. In the present Aryan world, the appropriation of the mental body, with consequent intellectual unfoldment. 4. In the coming race, conscious appropriation and integration of the threefold personality. 5. In the final race, the expression, in fullest measure, of the soul and its vehicles, plus some measure of spiritual manifestation. Here, therefore, we have 5 points of crisis in the life of the individual, in conjunction with the whole, with the first stage, called individualization, in Lemuria, the third stage in our race, and a final stage at the end of the age. These stages are carried forward over so long a period of time, and are so closely interrelated, that one stage and period makes possible that of another, and only the analytical mind sees or seeks differentiation. The reflection of this 5-fold experience in any individual life takes place in the following order in the life of the average intelligent aspirant, who responds to, and takes advantage of the civilization and education of the present time. 1. Appropriation of the physical sheath. This takes place between the 4th and 7th year, when the soul, hitherto overshadowing, takes possession of the physical vehicle. 2. A crisis during adolescence, wherein the soul appropriates the astral vehicle. This crisis is not recognized by the general public and is only dimly sensed, from its evidenced temporary abnormalities, by the average psychologist. They do not recognize the cause but only the effects. 3. A similar crisis between the 21st and 25th years, wherein the mind vehicle is appropriated. The man should then begin to respond to egoic influences, and in the case of the advanced man, he frequently does. 4. A crisis between the 35th and 42nd years, wherein conscious contact with the soul is established. The threefold personality then begins to respond, as a unit, to soul impulse. 5. For the remaining years of life, there should be an increasingly strong relationship between the soul and its vehicles, leading to another crisis between the 56th or the 63rd years. According to that crisis will depend the future usefulness of the person and whether the ego continues to use the vehicles on into old age, or whether there is a gradual withdrawal of the indwelling entity. There are many corresponding cycles of crisis in the life history of any soul down through the ages, but these major 5 crises can be traced with clarity from the standpoint of the higher vision. One of the ways in which the life story of a soul is charted in the archives of the masters, under the present planetary experiment, is by means of graphs, which give these crises racial and individual. Sometimes, with the more advanced aspirants, even the physiological crises of importance are charted. The entire story of the relationship of a soul with its several vehicles of expression in the 3 worlds, is the story of the various types of energy which are being magnetically related to each other and which are temporarily subordinated to varying aspects of force, in order to produce those fields of magnetic activity wherein certain needed rates of vibration may be established. From the angle of the initiates of the ageless wisdom, the story of man, the aspirant, is the story of his response to, or repulsive, applied energies. The fact that the interplay between different types of energy results in the formation of those aggregations, or condensations of force which we call bodies, sheaths or vehicles, material or immaterial, is incidental to the main issue, which is the development of a conscious response to the life of God. Small units of energy, relatively speaking, are swept into contact with great fields of force, which we call planes. According to the extent of the impact, and this is determined, symbolically speaking, by the power of the originating will, the so-called age of the soul, the potency of group activity, and planetary or group karma, so will be the response between the unit of energy and the field contacted, and so will be the quality and vibratory activity of the atoms of matter which are attracted and held together. They will thus constitute a temporary form from which can be seen as externalized, and as relatively tangible, and which can function as a mode or medium whereby the soul can contact larger forms of divine life and expression. The more intricate the organization of the form, and the more complex and perfect the response apparatus, the more clearly will be indicated the age of the soul, and the perfected intent or potency of its will, the freer it will be from the limiting karma of an involved conditioning vehicle. A close,